You are watching The World 24/7 on the NDTV network. I'm Parmeshwar Bava. We've got an action-packed bulletin lined up for you. Let's begin with the top stories you need to know. The US Supreme Court has denied a plea filed by 2611 Mumbai attacks co-conspirator Tahawwur Rana, seeking an emergency stay on his extradition to India. Media reports on Monday suggested that President Donald Trump is considering a 90-day pause in tariffs for all countries except China, a claim that White House swiftly dismissed as false. Donald Trump has also reiterated that he'll hit Beijing with an extra 50% tariff if it doesn't withdraw its retaliatory levy by midday today. Yet, the few financial markets that have opened in the Asia-Pacific region are trading higher. During a meeting with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, Donald Trump said the US is having direct talks with Iran beginning Saturday. Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman has arrived in London to begin a 6-day official tour of Europe. Talks on the India-UK Free Trade Agreement are expected on the sidelines. And Dubai Crown Prince and UAE Defence Minister Sheikh Hamdan bin Mohammed bin Rashid Al Maktoum's India touchdown is in focus. An effort to ramp up defence ties with the key strategic partner in the Gulf and Indian Ocean region is the key focus on this 2-day touchdown. And a big focus. The US Supreme Court has denied Mumbai terror attack accused Tahawwur Rana's application, seeking a stay on his extradition to India. Mr. Rana, who's a 64-year-old, a Canadian national of Pakistani origin, is currently lodged in the Metropolitan Detention Center in Los Angeles. He had submitted an emergency application for stay pending litigation of petition for writ of habeas corpus in February on the 27th to be precise, with Elena Kagan, an Associate Justice of the Supreme Court of the US and Circuit Justice for the Ninth Circuit. Earlier last month, though, Kagan had denied the application. Tahawwur Rana had then renewed his emergency application for stay pending litigation of petition for writ of habeas corpus, previously addressed to Justice Kagan, and requested that the renewed application be directed to Chief Justice Roberts. But an order on the Supreme Court website noted that Rana's renewed application has been distributed for conference and application has been referred to the court. Technical language, but the US top court has rejected Rana's plea. He has lost his last appeal. For further clarity, let's go across to my colleague Mohammed Ghazali, who's been tracking the finer details. Ghazali, so we're given to understand that Tahawwur Rana, who's currently held in a Los Angeles detention center, will now soon face a trial in India.
See, this appears to be the last legal recourse Tahawwur Rana has sort of utilized there, and it has not bring any kind of relief to him. The US Supreme Court has rejected his application, which demanded a stay on his extradition to India. In his last application, which is filed on 27th of Feb, he had appealed that perhaps his Muslim identity is something which is going to be risky for him, which is going to be dangerous for his life, because he alleged that Indian agencies will torture him only because he has a Muslim identity. But right now, it is a very positive and significant development for Indian agencies, because this has been one case which has been dragging on for years. India has been requesting for extradition of Tahawwur Rana, who is believed to be the mastermind of 26/11 attacks in Mumbai. He had stayed in Mumbai on 2 particular days, just days before the attack took place. He had traveled to Ahmedabad, Cochin, Hapur, and other areas. And perhaps once he's brought back, if the agencies get if he's sort of given to the Indian agencies and he's brought back to India, agencies will try to unravel all the links and people who were involved in 26/11, because Tahawwur Rana as well as David Coleman Headley, they both had come to India. They both are said to be the co-conspirators of 26/11 attack. And this has been a major and significant diplomatic victory for India, because there have been words, we heard it in Feb when Prime Minister visited the United States, that how Donald Trump, the US president, had promised that Tahawwur Rana will be extradited to India. India. But since then, for the last 2 months, we have seen him filing multiple applications in the US Supreme Court to just avoid a scenario where he will be extradited to India. But as of now, it is believed that this was his last legal recourse, last legal option, and he has exhausted all his options, and he will be finally be handed over to the Indian agencies.
As always, Ghazali, thank you so much for joining us with the lowdown. Let's turn our attention now to the US, where Donald Trump has said he's not considering pausing his sweeping tariffs that have sent the stock market spiraling, but he is willing to engage in negotiations with other countries. Yet, even as he signaled an openness to hear out world leaders' concerns with the steep tariffs, Trump said that doesn't mean that the tariffs won't be permanent. Speaking at the White House alongside the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, Trump emphasized that ongoing negotiations would focus on what he called fair deals, and in some cases, that would mean countries paying substantial tariffs. Listen in.
Markets today, and would you be open to a pause in tariffs to allow for negotiations?
Well, we're not looking at that. We have many countries that are coming to negotiate deals with us, and they're going to be fair deals, and in certain cases, they're going to be paying substantial tariffs. There'll be fair deals.
But one country Trump is not entertaining negotiations with is China, which he threatened with an additional 50% tariff if Beijing does not withdraw its new 34% retaliatory tariffs on US exports. The new tariff on China would be in addition to 54% tariffs Trump has already slapped. But Trump last week imposed a 10% minimum tariff on all imports and even higher reciprocal tariffs on the US's biggest trading partners, including China and the European Union, as we have been covering. The baseline tariff went into effect Saturday, and the reciprocal tariffs will begin on Wednesday. Trump has argued that higher tariffs, which seek to roll back decades of globalization, are critical to rejuvenate America's declining domestic manufacturing sectors and also create a level playing field with other countries that impose tariffs on US exports. Listen in to what the US president had to say and his threat to China.
With China, as you know, against my statement, they put a 34% tariff on above what their ridiculous tariff. We're putting a 50% tariff on above the tariffs that we put on. So they've gone for years. They've become a rich country because of people, again, that were in the White House that allowed this to happen. Hundreds of billions of dollars a year they'd make on us on trade, and it shouldn't be that way. And I have a great relationship with President Xi. I hope it's going to stay that way. I have great respect for China, but they can't do this.
Meanwhile, shares in the US stemmed their losses on Monday as investors clung to hopes that Donald Trump would turn from tariffs to trade deals. The S&P 500, which tracks 500 of the biggest companies in the US, ended the day down about 0.2% after a wild day of trading that saw shares fluctuating from losses to gains in some of the sharpest swing seen since the COVID-19 pandemic. In fact, in the days after Trump's announcement, stock markets in the US, in the UK, world over, have been hit by their worst one-day falls since the beginning of the pandemic in 2020. Global markets have been feeling the jitters. In fact, the few financial markets that have opened in the Asia-Pacific region are also trading higher as we speak. But for further clarity, we have with us Professor Darrell Montgomery, expert on all things global trade. Thank you so much, Professor, for making time for us. Given that Donald Trump has threatened to raise tariffs on Chinese imports now to 104%, how would such drastic measures affect both the US and global economies? Is this then the beginning of a trade war with long-lasting consequences, sir?
Well, we'll have to see that. It has to be remembered that Trump is a negotiator, and this is the essence of his being and the essence of every one of his actions. And he is famous for having written the book, The Art of the Deal. So everything he says should be seen or taken as a point in negotiation. And even though he says, oh, this might be permanent, that should be considered a negotiation stance. So we will just have to see. He's trying to get the best deal possible for the United States. That doesn't mean this will be ongoing forever.
The US Treasury Secretary, meanwhile, has said that they're engaging in talks with Japan and other nations. But Trump, meanwhile, has shown a strong preference for tariffs over trade deals. From an economic standpoint, how does this tension between negotiation and tariffs impact long-term economic growth?
Well, this is adding to the world is undergoing deglobalization, which was actually mentioned in your previous segment. And this is just exacerbating that trend that already existed. And this is going back to earlier American political stances from before World War II. The Republican Party always preferred like high tariffs and to protect American industry. And Trump is simply trying to return to that earlier era.
And economists, meanwhile, they warn that trade wars often lead to higher consumer prices and reduced global growth. Do you think this tariff approach is sustainable in the long run, or will it result in a global recession, as many experts are warning?
Well, we'll have to see how it turns out. I mean, you can't take everything that's being said literally. These are like stances for like, how can I get a good deal? And tariffs in general, I don't approve of tariffs in general at all. So, and in economics, they're not considered to be a good thing. But they do exist, and we have to see what will happen. And it does not mean we're going to have a massive global recession, depression because of these tariffs. I mean, there may be other things happening. We're in a long-term inflationary spiral through much of the world also already. So, and tariffs are likely to add to that too.
But with the possibility of tariff-induced recession looming, what sectors would you then say, Professor, of the US economy are most at risk, and how should investors ideally position themselves in response to these developments?
In the United States itself or globally?
Yes, in the US itself.
Well, obviously, this would be positive of certain U.S. Industries. In fact, U.S. steel went up quite a bit today because the tariffs are protectionist. And all in all, I would consider, gold is in a very, very big rally, and that's good for everyone in the world.
Right.
And other metals like silver, copper recently hit a new high. So, I consider commodities in general.
Right, Professor Montgomery, thank you so much for making time for us and joining us on NDTV. We will, of course, keep in touch with you for regular updates on global markets. Meanwhile, Trump defended the larger-than-expected tariffs on all imports to reporters in the Oval Office at the top of a bilateral meeting with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, who made his second trip to the White House since Trump was inaugurated in January. By the way, Mr. Netanyahu promised to eliminate Israel's trade surplus with the United States, a move likely to be closely watched by world leaders as Donald Trump's tariff policy roils global markets. Talks also covered the Gaza war and hostages and Iran tensions. Just listen in to what Mr. Netanyahu had to say.
We will eliminate the trade deficit with the United States. We intend to do it very quickly. We think it's the right thing to do. And we're going to also eliminate trade barriers, a variety of trade barriers that have been put up unnecessarily. And I think Israel can serve as a model for many countries who ought to do the same. I recognize the position of the United States. It says, we're allowing other countries to put tariffs on us, but we don't put tariffs on them. And, I'm a free trade champion, and free trade has to be fair trade.
And to take this further, we have with us on the broadcast Dr. Richard Benkin. Dr. Benkin, as always, thanks so much for your time. Looming over the meeting this week is a point of tension. Trump sweeping tariffs which did not spare Israel. There's also the Iran question. How significant would you say this meeting was, and what were some key takeaways for you?
Well, I think first, thank you for having me on. I appreciate that.
Our pleasure.
And these meetings are always important. The goal for Israel hasn't changed, but obviously between the Biden administration and the Trump administration, we've seen a sea change in terms of how much the United States supports what Israel's trying to do. So this is extremely significant. Now, I think the most significant takeaway that I found had to do with Iran. If you remember, President Trump announced at the press conference that the U.S. and Iran would be holding direct talks this Saturday.
Yes.
And that's extremely significant because if at the beginning of this most recent negotiations, Iran would only agree to indirect talks. So President Trump announcing that they agreed to direct talks seemed to be a big breakthrough. Now, since then, however, the Iranian government has said, no, they've only agreed to indirect talks where negotiators for the United States and Iran would both go to Oman, but they'd be in different rooms communicating only with Qatari negotiators who would bring these messages back and forth. So I think that's the most significant thing because, of course, President Trump has promised that if there is no agreement, and he has said on a number of occasions that everyone probably would prefer an agreement to the alternative, which is military force. But if an agreement is not reached, he has threatened pretty severe consequences on Iran, including bombing like they've never seen before. So I think, what happens with regards to U.S.-Iran negotiations, how Israel fits in there, that's going to be the most significant element here. Now, my guess is, based on other things I've heard and what's happened previously,
Yes.
is that no doubt President Trump and Prime Minister Netanyahu have already pretty much spoken about exactly what it would look like if, in fact, they had to take military action. And it would be something supportive of one another and something mutual. That is, I think, by far the most significant takeaway.
Well, we'll be keeping a close eye on all the developments. Dr. Benkin, as always, thank you so much for your time. Meanwhile, Donald Trump has also said the U.S. is working to get hostages released by Hamas and put in place a new ceasefire in the Gaza Strip, details of which are being worked out as we speak. And with that, let's now turn our attention to the EU. Well, the European Union has said it offered the U.S. a 0-for-0 tariff deal on cars and industrial goods weeks before Donald Trump launched his trade war, but that it would not wait endlessly to defend itself. The EU Commissioner for Trade said he had proposed zero tariffs on cars and a range of industrial goods, such as pharmaceutical products, rubber, and machinery during his first meeting with the US Commerce Secretary. This was back in February, on the 19th of February, with Howard Lutnick. The European Commission President, meanwhile, Ursula von der Leyen, has said that the EU had offered 0-for-0 tariffs for industrial goods, and that offer remained on the table. However, at a press conference last evening, Trump did not appear keen on the offer. Listen in. Right, we will line up that reaction for you. Meanwhile, let me also bring you up to date with what's happening as far as India and the US are concerned. India and the United States continue to deepen strategic coordination. In fact, External Affairs Minister Dr. Jaishankar spoke with US Secretary of State Marco Rubio. The two leaders exchanged views on major global and regional issues, is what we're given to understand. From the Indo-Pacific to the Indian subcontinent, Europe, West Asia, and the Caribbean, the conversation reflected a broad convergence, is what the Ministry of External Affairs has informed us. A key highlight was the shared emphasis on an early conclusion of the India-US bilateral trade agreement. This comes as New Delhi and Washington look to fast-track economic and geopolitical cooperation under Donald Trump's administration. With that, let's turn our attention now to Canada, which has requested the World Trade Organization dispute consultations with the United States over Donald Trump's decision to impose a 25% duty on cars and car parts from Canada. This is what the World Trade Organization has said. Canada claims the measures are inconsistent with the US obligations under various provisions under the General Agreement on Tariffs and Trade, 1994. This is what the WTO has added. Maha has been tracking the latest developments for us. She joins us live from Vancouver at the moment. Maha, so Canada has moved the World Trade Organization against the steep 25% tariffs on auto imports imposed by Donald Trump?
That's right. And this is the second case that Canada has taken to the WTO in the recent past. They've also taken the steel and aluminum tariffs of 25% to the WTO. Basically, what Canada is saying that by this 25% tariff that has been imposed by the US. It's flouting, as you pointed out, the 1994 GATT, that is General Agreement on Tariffs and Trade, under Article 2.1a, Article 2.1b, and Article 8.3, which says that this is not the correct way of going about imposing tariffs on countries, and this circumvents the rules of the World Trade Organization. But the problem with this this kind of appeal or approach to the World Trade Organization is that currently the dispute settlement system is in shambles. The appellate body is non-functional because of lack of quorum, which has been on since the 2019, since the US has been blocking the placement of judges in the appellate body, and therefore any arbitration or dispute mechanism system that the WTO has at the moment, any appeal there will go into a void. What we have here at the current moment is 60 days to both the parties, that is Canada and the US, to look for consultations, and that is exactly what the WTO has also pointed out. The 60 days period gives them a time to consult each other and look for a solution which doesn't take this or initiate this process or takes this process any further. Because if it goes further than that, then as it is, under the current dispute settlement system, this appeal will run into a void. There are about 60 odd countries that have established, which is helped by the EU, a parallel system of dispute resolution for World Trade Organization. However, US is not part of that, and therefore any conflict at this point, the problem is, cannot be resolved by the WTO.
Maha, as always, thank you so much for joining us with the lowdown. Meanwhile, the United States and Iran will hold direct talks over a possible nuclear deal on Saturday. This is what Donald Trump has disclosed. The meeting has also been confirmed by Iran's foreign minister, who called it as much an opportunity as it is a test. The US president had said discussions between Washington and Tehran would be at a very high level, and warned as well that it would be a very bad day for Iran if no agreement was reached.
We're having direct talks with Iran, and they've started. It'll go on Saturday. We have a very big meeting, and we'll see what can happen. And I think everybody agrees that doing a deal would be preferable to doing the obvious. And the obvious is not something that I want to be involved with, or frankly, that Israel wants to be involved with if they can avoid it. So we're going to see if we can avoid it. But it's getting to be very dangerous territory. And hopefully those talks will be successful. And I think it would be in Iran's best interest if they are successful.
With that, let's turn our attention now to the Finance Minister's London touchdown. Nirmala Sitharaman has arrived in London to begin a 6-day official tour, which will take her to Europe as well. The highlight of the visit is the 13th India-UK Economic and Financial Dialogue with Chancellor Rachel Reeves, focusing on trade, UPI interlinkage, investment, as well as financial regulation. In fact, bilateral talks on the India-UK Free Trade Agreement are expected on the sidelines as well. Ms. Sitharaman will then travel to Austria for meetings with top Austrian officials as well as top business leaders in Austria. News and updates continue in a moment right after this very short break. Do stay tuned.
More news that matters.
Big exclusive. Tulsi Gabbard.
All the parties should accept their verdict with all humility.
Why the opposition to it? Why taking big steps?
More debates that shake the system. More exclusives you won't find anywhere else. Not just another prime time.
Hello and welcome to The Southern View. I'm Veera Raghav.
This is the news break and I'm Vasudha Venugopal. This is The Last Word and I'm Maria Shakil.
Left, right and centre, and good evening and welcome.
It's a prime time that's unmissable.
How often have you turned away from debates that descend into endless fights? We bring you a show where every question is answered, where every debate finds its resolution, where every story finds its conclusion, where opinions collide but facts prevail, where stories unfold with insights and trust. When the noise ends, the last word begins.
I've been reporting on all issues, big and small, from Andhra Pradesh, Telangana, rest of South India, bringing you all the action, all that you need to know, all that you want to know.
The energy of Maximum City is infectious. I bring in that energy in our news coverage from financial capital Mumbai.
Covering from the southernmost part of
Welcome back. Well, our big focus also remains the Crown Prince of Dubai's touchdown in India. He has an action-packed schedule lined up. In fact, over these 2 days, he will meet Prime Minister Modi for a working lunch, which the Prime Minister is hosting in his honor. He's also scheduled to hold talks with External Affairs Minister Dr. Jaishankar and our Defence Minister Rajnath Singh. In Mumbai, in fact, he will be leading a business roundtable with Indian and Emirati leaders. The visit aims to strengthen the India-UAE comprehensive strategic partnership, deepen trade ties, and further connect the 4.3 million strong Indian diaspora in the UAE. In other news, the US Supreme Court has ruled that Donald Trump can continue using a centuries-old wartime law to fast-track deportations. The Alien Enemies Act, which was passed in 1798, allows the US president to detain and deport people from enemy nations without regular legal proceedings. On Monday, the court lifted a lower court's block, permitting the Trump administration to deport alleged gang members while legal challenges continue. So far, at least 137 people have been removed under this law in the US. Rights groups have condemned the move, saying it undermines due process and opens the door to abuse. But the case will now proceed through lower courts. But you must note that deportations can continue in the meantime as well. Thank you for investing your time in watching this edition of The World 24/7. As always, we'll keep tracking the latest for you. Do stay tuned.
This by all of these auditors.
Is seeking more information on the trades and the all the transaction which has happened from the exchanges, both NSE and BSE.
The Reserve Bank of India's supervisory officers, they are seeking compliance reports on their foreign currency borrowings by these banks.
The DSS is, actively engaging with the Reserve Bank of India to sort of ensure the thorough examination of the matter. And
IndusInd Bank, as part of its internal review, had found that certain aspects of its derivatives portfolio was not meeting the standard that was set by the Reserve Bank of India.
Do you really know the company you invest in? What is the real picture behind presentations and claims? Is the outlook as rosy as the company claims? Know Your Company, powered by NDTV Profit Research, shines a light on the biggest stock market movers.
In today's interconnected world, India's voice is more crucial than ever. When India speaks, the world listens. At NDTV World, we are that voice, bringing you intelligent.
And good morning. Welcome to Breakfast Show. I'm Radhika Ramaswamy joining you from Mumbai studios. We also have Divya joining us from Delhi. Divya, big win for India. In fact, Tahawwur Rana will be extradited soon. His last appeal has been rejected by US Supreme Court, and Amit Shah is in J&K, is reviewing security there and has also announced high-tech security measures to safeguard borders. We have a lot lined up.
That's right. We also have Donald Trump, who's threatening with extra 50% tariffs on China. And despite that, the Asian markets have recovered. And it is Virat Kohli who's created history. We'll get you all that. First, the headlines. Big win for India. The US top court junks Tahawwur Rana's plea, the mastermind behind the 26/11 attacks. He will be extradited to India. He will be back in India to stand trial.
Home Minister's big announcement to thwart intrusion. Amit Shah says government to deploy e-surveillance systems along LOC.
And Dubai's Crown Prince Sheikh Hamdan bin Mohammed Al Maktoum's visit to India between today and tomorrow aims to deepen bilateral ties across key strategic sectors. He's going to be meeting Prime Minister Modi, S. Jaishankar as well as Rajnath Singh.
Asian markets rebound recovery despite Trump's China tariff threat of an additional 50% tariff on China.
And Virat Kohli scripts history by becoming the fastest Indian batter to score 13,000 T20 runs. He slammed a stunning six off Jasprit Bumrah to leave the fans and the experts thrilled. Let's get to your top story, and that's a huge win when it comes to India. Now, the United States Supreme Court has rejected. This is the plea of the mastermind of the Mumbai attacks back in 2008. We're talking about Tahawwur Hussain Rana's application seeking a stay on his extradition to India has been rejected. This comes after Rana's plea against his extradition was rejected by the top court of the United States last month. Of course, Rana, 64-year-old, a Canadian national of Pakistani origin, is currently lodged in the Metropolitan Detention Center in Los Angeles. So, Radhika, a big win when it comes to India. Of course, he'd been seeking on the grounds that he'll be tortured in India, considering the fact that, on various grounds he was trying to, avoid that extradition. But now it is all coming true and it's all happening now.
Absolutely. This is a big win as far as Indian agencies are concerned. In fact, in February this year, he had filed that emergency application that was rejected. Of course, he's now currently lodged at Metropolitan Detention Center at Los Angeles. He will be handed over to NIA by a Federal Bureau of Investigation on a day that is to be decided by both the agencies. Of course, there's hope that 26/11 victims will get justice soon. We have Ghazali joining us, and we also, I believe, have Juhi Jadhav also joining us from Taj Palace in Mumbai, where the deadly attacks took place. I'll go across to Juhi first. Juhi, of course, the 26/11 deadly attacks are etched in every Mumbaiker's memories, and the place where you're standing now had been sort of a witness to that, and we know what exactly happened on that fateful day and night. Take us through, what sense of closure our victims and the loved ones of those who lost their lives are feeling at this point. This is, of course, a sense of closure as far as they are concerned.
Well, Radhika, as you rightly said, this is the justice for the victims of 26/11 as Tahawwur Rana, who is one of the accused of 26/11. His application for extradition to India, a stay on extradition to India, has been denied by the US Supreme Court. Where I'm standing right now is Taj, who has witnessed the 26/11 attack, because 3 major hotels in Mumbai, one Jewish company and also one hotel, have been witnessed the attack of 26/11. And now Tahawwur Rana, who is the mastermind of this attack, has the US Supreme Court has given a stay on his extradition to moving to India. This is a big win for India and a relief for the victims of 26/11, as Tahawwur Rana, who had supplied the materials to the Pakistani Lashkar-e-Taiba, who has been accused for this attack, that Pakistan has denied that they have made this attack. But yes, Tahawwur Rana has been in custody, is in Metropolitan, if you go to see, for 14 years, and now his stay has been denied for extradition in India by the US Supreme Court itself. In February, in White House, when there was a press conference taken by Donald Trump and India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi, it was stated by Donald Trump that he is very happy that his administration has is given permission for extradition of a terrorist to being handed over to Indian judicial. And yes, he is very happy on this sentence. The date has not been decided. The date will be decided that when Tahawwur Rana will be handed over to Indian custody, and also the people and Indian judicial is waiting for Tahawwur Rana's custody, because they need to give justice to the Indians, for the victims who have faced this attack. And yes, also the people in India are waiting that when justice will be given to them, and for the victims who have faced this attack. Taj Hotel, Oberoi Hotel, and also the Leopold Cafe have been victims of this attacks, and almost 166 people have been died in this overall attack. So yes, justice will be given to them once Tahawwur Rana is handed over to Indian custody, Indian judicial, and when the Indian judicial will punish him for the act that he has done in 26/11/2008. Radhika.
Right, Juhi, of course, we also have Ghazali with us, and Ghazali, the NIA officials are saying that the agency expects the US authorities to soon convey the dates when its team can travel to the United States to bring Tahawwur Rana back to India to face trial. We don't know the dates yet, but that's expected soon. It could be up to a couple of weeks, perhaps.
See, first of all, there has to be an official word whether this was the last legal option he had exhausted. There are no other legal options available for Mr. Rana, because this we have been hearing since January for the first or the last time when his bail application or application to stay his extradition was rejected by the US Supreme Court. And it appeared then that it's just a matter of a few weeks and he'll be brought back or handed over to the Indian agencies. But that hadn't happened. And on Feb 27, this application was filed, which was rejected yesterday. So Indian agencies also haven't issued any kind of word on whether that is going to be the last option or that was the last option for Mr. Rana. But we are being told that perhaps now the time is close. All the options have been exhausted, and it's a matter of few days to few weeks, because we never know with US. We have to be a bit skeptical. But this is a major diplomatic